Megumi has truly gone through it, man. I really don't know who has it worse, Yuji or Megumi. Now, Yuji has been the vessel for Sukuna, the king of curses, and he has seen Sukuna kill countless people. The anime even hit Yuji with the "You are my special" while he was at his lowest. But Megumi, on the other hand, has had Sukuna kill his own sister and Gojo, his sensei. But even with all of this, the Jujutsu sorcerers have a plan to defeat Sukuna and save Megumi. So stay tuned, because in this video, we're going to go over how Sukuna managed to take over Megumi's body, the current battle between the Jujutsu sorcerers and Sukuna, and how the Jujutsu sorcerers plan to defeat Sukuna and save Megumi. Now before we get into it, if you're enjoying the video, be sure to smash that like button. Lets me know you're rocking with the video and helps it get out to more people like you. Also be sure to smash that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the new Jujutsu Kaisen videos. Perfect. With that being said, let's get back to it. Now let's start with how Sukuna managed to possess Megumi's body. So Sukuna originally possessed Yuji's body, but since Yuji had the ability to restrain Sukuna's control over his body, Sukuna made his own plan in order to escape Yuji's body and take over Megumi's. Now early in the series, Sukuna had made a binding vow with Yuji that when he would say "in chain," he would be able to take full control over Yuji's body for 1 minute. Now in this time, he would not be able to hurt anyone else. But at the same time, one of the details of this binding vow is that Yuji would forget all about it.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
Terrible deal. Then in chapter 212, Sukuna took action on this plan and enacted on his binding vow. After Megumi had saw that his sister, Sumiki, had gotten her body controlled by an ancient sorcerer, Yorozu, Megumi entered a state of shock, which caused him to freeze. And in those few precious moments, Sukuna took this opportunity to gain the upper hand. At this point, he made use of the binding vow, saying "in chain," causing him to fully take over Yuji's body. At this point, he put all of his cursed energy into one of Yuji's fingers, turning it into a cursed object, then immediately shoved it down Megumi's throat. Pause. But this caused Megumi to become the new vessel of Sukuna and allowed Sukuna to take over control of Megumi's body. Now, even after Sukuna took over Megumi's body, Megumi's soul still had a bit of resistance, which was weakening Sukuna's power and attacks against Megumi's friends. Now this is pretty interesting because we were told at the beginning of the series that Yuji was 1 in a million for his unique ability to be able to control or restrain Sukuna, but it does seem like Megumi is able to do this a bit himself. Pretty interesting. I got a few ideas why. Nonetheless, effectively here, Megumi is able to restrain Sukuna to a degree, which is making it difficult for Sukuna to use his curse techniques. And Sukuna is the king of curses. He ain't having none of this. He did not just leave Yuji's body to just be trapped in someone else's body that's restraining him. So he has a couple motions he has to put into play. The first is going through a Jujutsu ritual, which is able to take a far step at sinking Megumi's soul and giving him further control of the body. But this was not enough, and Sukuna wouldn't stop just there. He ended up taking the extra steps here, and in Megumi's own body, ended up killing Megumi's sister. This ended up being extremely effective at sinking Megumi's soul right down to the bottom. At this point, Sukuna has pretty much full control of Megumi's body. Now from here, Sukuna wastes no time to wreak havoc. He goes straight up to battle Gojo, which ultimately leads to Gojo's defeat.
What?
And this left the JJK sorcerers in a tough position. They now need to step to the plate and figure out how they're going to not only defeat Sukuna, but save Megumi as well, if it's even possible. Fast forward a bit, and the sorcerers are now in their battle against Sukuna. Higuruma had just caught Sukuna his domain expansion, and his domain was a success. Well, slightly. The sorcerers had planned to confiscate Sukuna's curse technique with Higuruma's domain, but rather they managed to confiscate Sukuna's cursed weapon. Now once out of the domain, Sukuna immediately let off his slash attacks, but through this, Higuruma managed to defend himself by using domain amplification. Kusakabe also did similar and managed to defend himself by using his simple domain. This is pretty incredible because we haven't seen really much characters at all be able to defend themselves against Sukuna's cleave and dismantle. There might be Gojo and maybe Maharaga, who's able to adapt to all phenomenon. So seeing the sorcerer step up and be able to defend here goes crazy. Sukuna at this point notices that all of the sorcerers have leveled up their cursed energy fundamentals. The battle is really on now. Kusakabe then assesses that Sukuna happened to not use his slashes that cut through the world itself, the attack that was able to kill Gojo even with his limitless and infinity. He then figures that this is because of maybe a binding vow or a time restriction with the technique. He also recognizes that he hasn't even used the fire arrow that he used to kill the special great spirit Jogo. This is interesting because either of these techniques would make light work of all of the sorcerers that he's fighting right now. But there's not too much time to think because Chozo joins the fight and sends a piercing blood straight at Sukuna, and piercing blood goes crazy fast, but not faster than Sukuna. Sukuna immediately disappears, dashing right in front of Chozo and sends Chozo flying back. We then see Chozo spitting out blood. The battle keeps going on and Ino joins, shiesty mask on and everything. We also see him holding Nanami's cursed tool, and then he sends an attack flying straight at Sukuna. Now Sukuna is able to defend and block this attack, but it does way more damage than Sukuna expected. Sukuna then notices that it likely has the properties of Nanami's curse technique to be dealing a critical hit. And now I just gotta say, that's actually pretty fire. Long live Nanami, but his curse technique was crazy, so the fact that he has that embedded into a cursed weapon is all the more hype. But Sukuna's not really worried about this. He then kicks Ino right out the fight. And then Sukuna starts making a dash towards Higuruma to then be challenged by Itadori. And Yuji Itadori is one of the fastest characters in the series. But again, Sukuna don't care. He just speeds up and beats Yuji over to Higuruma.
I'm fast. I'm fast as fuck.
Trapping Higuruma in practically a corner. At this point, Sukuna sends his slash attacks over to Higuruma to be shocked that Higuruma was able to nullify this complete technique. And this was because Higuruma ended up using his domain amplification. Now this is crazy. Higuruma became an awakened sorcerer about just 2 months ago. And at the speed that he's developed, his understanding of cursed energy is insane. All of the sorcerers and even Sukuna at this point recognize Higuruma's genius. But now we're finding out the plan that the Jujutsu sorcerers have in store in order to defeat Sukuna.
Oh shit, where's Megumi?
And save Megumi, with one of the key players in this plan being none other than Higuruma. The sorcerer's plan in rescuing Megumi lies in Higuruma's domain expansion, Deadly Sentencing. Inside Higuruma's domain, the Shikigami Judgeman passes judgment on his enemies. If the enemy receives the death sentence, they face curse technique confiscation, and Higuruma gets the Executioner Sword. This sword has the ability to kill any enemy in a single touch. The catch here is that in Sukuna's case, where 2 souls reside in the same body, the sentencing will only apply to the convict and not the other soul. This means that Judgeman can distinguish between multiple souls within a single vessel's body, and if the Executioner Sword hits Sukuna, it will only affect Sukuna, keeping Megumi alive. And now we're entering the moment where Higuruma pulls forward the Executioner Sword, ready to face off head and head against Sukuna. Now in this case, if the sword is able to hit Sukuna, Sukuna will die and Megumi will remain alive, at least hopefully. There's also the case that the author JJK is hiding something. But with all this in mind, there's a number of things that could happen next. It's pretty unlikely that Higuruma can get a single hit off on Sukuna. Sukuna offered this same challenge against the special grade cursed spirit Jogo, and Jogo wasn't able to get a single touch off on him.
Touch this.
We could also see Higuruma aim to activate his domain expansion again to aim to fully confiscate Sukuna's curse technique. Now in this case, Sukuna could try a couple of tricks. Maybe he gives control over to Megumi, where Megumi becomes guilty in this case to try to tie the target of the Executioner Sword to be both Sukuna and Megumi. Now with that possibility in mind, I do think this is unlikely. A bit earlier he said guilty just because he wanted to get to that smoke, get to the action, but also why would he give control over the body to Megumi if he took all these efforts to make sure Megumi is not in control? Let alone at this point, Megumi's body and soul has gone through so much, he probably wouldn't be in pretty good shape even if he was brought back now. But with all this in mind, there is the fact that Higuruma has backup. And this is something that JJK has done an incredible job on. There are so many pieces on the board right now, from Higuruma directly fighting Sukuna, Yuji is on the way with also an unknown curse technique that will soon be revealed, Maki with a heavenly restriction and being one of the physically strongest out of all of the characters and more than likely on the way to put in some work. And then we can't forget Yuta. He just got done beheading Kenjaku and may have also copied Ui's curse technique of teleportation. Before we know it, he may be right into the action for the sorcerers to lay their strike and aim to put down Sukuna and save Megumi. All this is really putting pressure on Sukuna, the demon who has managed to outsmart every JJK sorcerer in this series, even to this point. But hey, let me know what you think. Do you think the sorcerers will manage to save Megumi and defeat Sukuna? Or honestly, do you think Megumi will even get saved at all? Go ahead and drop that in the comments below. Also, if you're rocking with the video, be sure to smash that like button. And don't forget to hit that sub button as well for new Jujutsu Kaisen videos.
Perfect.
And somewhere here is the video that YouTube thinks you're going to love the most next. Be sure to check that out. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.